Folks, big changes may be coming to the U.S. Postal Service. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy just signed an agreement with Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. Yeah, you heard that right, to help, quote, fix the Postal Service's finances. But let's be clear, this is not about fixing. It's about slashing and taking it over. Since DeJoy took over in 2020, 30,000 jobs have already been cut at the Postal Service, and another 10,000 layoffs are coming next month. Black workers make up nearly 30% of the Postal Service employees. And here's a bigger picture. There's talk of privatizing the USPS. That means fewer jobs, high prices for mail delivery, and less service in rural and low-income communities. Now, there's a federal law, Michael, that says that was passed to not privatize the Postal Service. A lot of people, a lot of progressives and Democrats are concerned because guess what? If Trump gets his hands on the Postal Service, that impacts ballots and things along those lines. And so this is something that Republicans have long sought after, but we are seeing that this war is going to be happening there too.
Absolutely. And this is something that was floated during the first Trump administration. And as you have mentioned, the Republicans, conservatives have been talking about privatizing not just Social Security, but also the U.S. Postal Service as well, selling off parts of it. And this was something that came up during the first Trump administration when you deal with mail-in ballots. And now, if it's privatized, the delay in mail-in ballots being sent to certain areas, say maybe like, I don't know, Detroit, Atlanta, Philadelphia, something like that. So, yeah, this is, once again, devastating news. There are going to be lawsuits around this. But this is what we were warning African Americans about. And another thing, Roland, is that when you look at the attack on DEI, right, they're using that all across the federal government now to attack the Department of Education, to shut down various departments, to lay off people, et cetera. Now, in this specific instance, it's important for people to understand African Americans have been working for the U.S. Postal Service going back to the 1840s. Not the 1940s, going back to the 1840s. And this was one of the, now, and then after slavery in the late 1800s, things like this, early 1900s, this is one of the first government jobs that we had. And there are 640,000 employees of the U.S. Postal Service, 29% are African American. So this is more devastating attacks that will gut the African American middle class. This is one of the ways that you got into the middle class, federal government jobs, especially the U.S. Postal Service.
Again, for the folk, Derek, who can't do math, we're talking about more than 190,000 black employees in the Postal Service.
Not only that 190,000 black employees' lives will change significantly if this is privatized. The other aspect, Roland, that we tend to take for granted is that a lot of black entrepreneurs, businesses, use the United States Postal Service. And so now you have a government that's anti-DEI, and then you look at someone like Kelly Loeffler.
No. Let's wait. No, hold on, Jared. Let's be real specific. You have a government that's anti-black.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, Roland, you're exactly right. Because I just had a debate yesterday around the Department of Education, and I said they're removing the African American AP courses, but yet you're going to leave the German courses, the French courses, and all the other. But yeah, so you're exactly right. They are anti-black. So I appreciate that correction. But the point, to your point, is that when you look at black businesses that need to use the United States Postal Service, because the United States Postal Service will be able to move their goods and products, unlike at the expense of companies like FedEx and UPS, where they're going to charge them an exuberant amount of money. The United States Postal Service will give you a different kind of break. Even with us who are in the political arena, we use the United States Postal Service when we campaign. And so if you're going to privatize it, now they can determine what literature is processed through the Postal Service. And then there's one other point that we need to highlight, Roland, is medicine. You're starting to use a lot of senior citizens getting their medicine through the mail too. And so the mail system touched so many aspects of our lives that we just take for granted. And if they privatize it, the Black community will be severely negatively impacted.
Folk got to recognize, Matt, this is no joke that's going on. Listen, for 3 years, we said Project 2025 was real when Trump lied. Oh, I don't know anything about it. I don't even want to read it. We knew he was lying. But all these folks who are now crying, hashtag, we tried to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, they knew what it was, and somehow they thought they would be insulated from the brunt of it. And you see people crying all over social media because they're getting what they voted for. I will tell you, I think I'm a little bit at a disadvantage with the post office and the economics as it relates to it, because I understand that the postal office has operated at a loss for, multiple years. It has been a profitability issue. And while I completely am sympathetic and hope that a lot of Black people, hundreds of thousands of Black people, don't lose their jobs, I am wondering what extent to which the economic woes play into what the appropriate thing to do is with the post office. And I'm not in any way advocating for privatization, but not understanding the economics enough.
Well, but here's right. So great point. So
analysis.
No. I'm gonna let you continue with it, but I want to put a pin in that right there.
Okay.
What a lot of people don't realize is that the law was changed where the Postal Service was required to basically front load their pension. And so when you look at, and second of all, it's also a congressional mandate. So when you talk about the delivery of mail service in the country, you're talking about, and this is a part that a lot of people just can't accept. It's a lot of land in the United States. And so when you start talking about going out to rural areas, delivering just simple letters and things along those lines, that's a major issue. You got lots of senior citizens who get their medicine through the post office as well. So in many ways, the post office has operated as a public service, as a public utility. So you have folks who say, well, we need to run it like a business. But see, the problem with running it like a business is when you have a business, so let's just take an airline goes, well, this is an unprofitable route. So what then happens is there are a lot of mid-sized and small towns in the United States that have no air service whatsoever. They may have to drive 30, 60, 90, 100 miles to catch a flight at a major airport. Well, the post office was set up totally different. It was, we're going to deliver mail to these rural parts of the country. So a huge issue is that it requires a lot of people with the post office. And that's what's played into this economics piece when you start talking about the number of people who live in rural Georgia and rural Texas and rural Iowa and Illinois and Idaho and Montana and all these states where Congress has said, no, we're going to ensure that people are able to get the mail. Then you have the folks who say, well, things have changed. We're now electronic. But guess what? Rural areas, a lot of them don't have high-speed internet. So the folks who say, let's modernize and let's cut a lot of these, manual expenses, it's an additional problem because if people are unable to get online, what do they rely on? The Postal Service. Now go ahead.
Yeah, look, I'm not advocating for privatization. I'm just readily admitting I don't know all the economics.
I got you.
I think when we talk about the post office, that's a lot of the problem, because all you hear is about cost overruns and, issues not making they're at least making a profit. So I think one, that kind of makes it difficult for people to fully understand why privatization would be a bad thing. I love that you framed it as a public service, because that's exactly what I think of as the post office, being. And I think it's a question of how does it need to be reformed, maybe even via congressional mandated through a congressional law, to make it such that it is not characterized essentially as a quasi-governmental business that's not running a profit, because then it's easy to get the rhetoric around that we need to get rid of it or privatize it because it's a business that's not meeting its financial goals. But outside of all of that, I would say as it relates to the post office, you see that Louis DeJoy is here. And it's interesting because he's kind of ridden under the radar through the Biden administration because he was a Trump appointee. But I'm sure that this is something that the Republicans have been looking to do for a long time. And he's just kind of laid in wait. And now, to your point about Project 2025, they're able to enact a plan that they knew was coming. But I do think that, at least in the political context, for Democrats to edify people like myself and others, they need to explain why the post office is not only a public good, but how it can be reformed to continue to serve that public good, but not be an easy thing on the chopping block as it relates to, cost overruns and the financial piece of it.
Right. And
so here's something here. So in fiscal year 2024, the Postal Service lost $9.5 billion. And they say they don't expect they're gonna make a profit. They're gonna break even in 2025. Now, this is what the Postal Service said: 80% of the agency's losses come from fixed costs, which include pension contributions for its retirees and workers' compensation claims for employees injured on the job. All right. Now, here's the issue. When all of a sudden, when they try to raise prices, oh my God, members of Congress lose their minds. People actually go crazy. So they don't have any plan to set higher prices in 2025, but they're looking at 2027. Now, here's one of the issues that, again, we talk about the post office has. One, you have competition between UPS, between FedEx. You got that. Also, the amount of mail that we used to get, guess what? That's dropping. What I mean by that is that when you look at the numbers, we don't get as much junk mail because things have also become digital. The last point is Congress mandates that every place in America be served by the post office. So that goes back to, again, those costs as well. Michael, real quick.
Yeah, so what you just said, that last point, Congress mandates that everyone is served by the post office. That's the difference between a business and the federal government. The federal government has to serve everyone. And this is a debate that takes place a lot of times in business schools. Can we run the federal government like a business? No, you cannot, because the federal government, these different entities are put in place to provide a service. Well, as a business, the number one reason why you go into business is to make a profit.
Can I ask one question?
Yep. So go ahead. Yeah.
So do you know, was the post office intending to front load those pensions and then amortize the cost, I guess, over X number of years and then be profitable outside of those pension costs after 7 years, 5 years, 10 years? And do you know anything to that end?
Let me, actually, I'm gonna address the healthcare piece. 1 second. Let me pull this up. Because then again, this is one of the things that it happened a few years ago. So this is a piece right here that it was called "How Congress Manufactured a Postal Crisis." So in 2006, Congress passed a law that laid out massive cost on the Postal Service. So this is 2006, the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act. It required the Postal Service to create a $72 billion fund. This is a piece from the Institute for Policy Studies. It required the Postal Service to create a $72 billion fund to pay for the cost of its post-retirement health care costs 75 years into the future. Gotcha. Okay? They say here, this burden applies to no other federal agency or private corporation. So as a result, if you're having to pay health for the next 75 years, you're going to be running a deficit. So it's not like, oh, we can pay for the next 50 years. No, 75 years. So this is what some have described as Congress passing such a law that is one of the reasons why when you look at the current numbers, why it says, oh, they're losing money because they had to set aside $72 billion. And so that's part of the issue here. And so between that, you have pensions as well. All of these things combined that you have to deal with. And look, the reality is when it comes to pensions, these are people who took lower salaries for a number of years based on the promise of having a pension, and now you got to pay for that. What happened with a lot of publicly traded companies? You had a lot of these companies that owe a lot of workers pensions. You know what they started doing? Whacking their pensions. And so all of a sudden you start screwing the people who you promised pensions once they retired. So it's a lot of stuff. So Congress, as opposed to complaining in all these hearings, needs to also learn to accept the role that they played in creating a huge problem.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $8.6 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.
En el pequeño y encantador pueblo de Springfield, Ohio, vivía una regia poodle estándar llamada Bella. Bella pertenecía a la señora von Thorsenberg, una figura bien conocida en la comunidad, siempre elegante, conservadora en sus modales, pero demócrata de toda la vida. Durante años, organizó reuniones elegantes, se involucró en la política local y trató su hogar como un reino. Recientemente, sin embargo, las cosas habían cambiado. La señora von Thorsenberg había estado viendo mucho Fox News, y eso parecía haber cambiado su forma de pensar. Ya no era la demócrata que defendía las causas comunitarias, en cambio, se había convertido en una ferviente partidaria. Para más información haga clic en el enlace del árbol en el perfil. La bola de cristal de la soñadora. En algún lugar de Springfield, Ohio, una niña migrante haitiana y su madre acababan de recoger bayas frescas, nueces, dátiles y frutas para los ancianos del pueblo. Con el dinero que ganaron, se dirigieron al mercado con entusiasmo, planeando comprar verduras para un delicioso estofado de venado que la madre estaba preparando esa noche. Pero cuando llegaron, se encontraron con una escena caótica. Una multitud de partidarios trumpistas, con banderas de una era pasada ondeando en el aire, acusaba falsamente a la madre de ser una sirvienta o mascota de la gente del pueblo.
Para más información haga clic en el enlace del árbol en el perfil.
Mahogany's Dream, by Ariel Williams, follows the journey of Mahogany, an African-American trans woman who rises to fame as an internationally beloved supermodel. From her loving family's early support to her glamorous career, Mahogany faces the complexities of identity, ambition, and resilience. As her career blossoms, she encounters jealous rivals, cultural obstacles, and the persistent shadows of restrictive laws under Project 2025, when she meets the man who secretly supported her career, and their friendship blossoms into love. They dream of marriage, only to find that her trans identity stands as a legal barrier. With love and the courage to be true to herself, Mahogany's story is one of inspiration, as she prepares to confront both her public and personal worlds on her terms.
A dying planet, the last harvest.
In the year 2060, Earth is a shadow of its former self, choked by pollution, endless concrete, and abandoned by nature. Only a small fishing village by the sea has managed to preserve the planet's last untouched forest. In this dying world, June and Win, two young girls and the last children in their village, cling to the remnants of hope and innocence. Win roams the forest, collecting the season's last harvest, while June sings songs that echo with a haunting beauty through the village.
For more, click Linktree in profile.
Duck Walk by Ariel Williams. Henrietta Wilkins rushes to church one Sunday morning, accidentally leaving her gate open. Her duck, Duckwaisha, seizes the chance to take her 5 ducklings to the local pond. Along the way, the ducklings fall into a manhole, causing a town-wide rescue effort. After a frantic search, Duckwaisha finds her ducklings safely swimming in the pond, and the heartwarming story makes local news. Meanwhile, Henrietta realizes her mistake and panics, but the firemen reunite her with Duckwaisha and her ducklings, bringing a happy ending to their adventure.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
Dive into the story. This is more than a book, it's an experience. Download now. Read on your favorite EPUB reader or PDF reader. Click the link in bio to access the full story. Start your journey today.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.